So do I start or you want to start?
I'm going to start by introducing you.
Got it.
All right. Okay. So we are currently live. I just want to introduce everyone to Silviano Velasquez, and he is with Trivel Construction. And so really excited to have you here today. Thank you so much for being present. And we're going to jump into this. I really wanted to be able to do this so that we could hear from you guys out on the job site. We can sit here in LinkedIn land and love everything that we're saying to each other, but until we really hear the voices that are there on the job sites, it makes it hard to be able to really connect why you guys are having such a hard time out on the job sites, or why it's hard to get communication to flow or information to really get done what needs to be done, and that is simply the completion of these projects. So we created the case study as an opportunity for people to be able to use it with their own companies and be able to bring their employees in to hear about problems that have happened on other job sites, so that we could kind of create really a video audio lessons learned binder that they can really understand and go through some of the things that happen. So Silviano, when you and I were talking, there was an excitement that came over you because all of a sudden there were a million problems that you could think about talking about. And I'm sure that everyone out in the audience has felt the same way, that there's just some things going on their job site that maybe they've already experienced in the past and wish that, why didn't I see this coming again? Or things that they have never experienced before and don't know how to get through it. And so when we were talking, we settled on learning about schedules and really understanding how a schedule is going to impact your entire project from beginning to end. And so before we start there, can you just tell the audience a little bit about yourself and how you came to where you are today?
Sure. So my name is Silviano Velasquez, and I've been doing construction now for anywhere from 28, 29 years, somewhere in that time frame. I started off as a carpenter, framing, schools, buildings all over Sacramento area, to then working for a company, worked for multiple companies back in the day, like I said, as a framer. And then my previous employer, who I worked for a long time, gave me the opportunity then to go into as a foreman, lead carpenter to a foreman, to then I went in the office to a superintendent, to then I learned how to be a project manager. Never done it in my life before. Never thought I was going to be a project manager. I think when I became a project manager, that's when I took some of Corey's classes. I went to Consumers River College, and I said, you know what, I need to, hopefully I'm doing things right. So I took some of Corey's classes, and never had a chance to finish, but I not only was I working full time, but I was also trying to take anywhere from 9 to 12 units at the same time, which was a lot. And I have a family. I have 3 kids and a wife, so it made it a little bit difficult, especially when you're running projects and running manpower. It made it very difficult. So at some point I had to stop that. But no, I learned a lot, and continued project managing, running the general side. And then about 3 years ago, I decided, you know what, it's time to move on my own, and I started my own business. So pretty much doing the same thing. Corey's been a huge help for me as far as, a confidant, talking to people, talking to see what's out there. I remember when on certain things. So yeah, that's pretty much my life story in the last 28, 30 years.
Well, I appreciate it. And, it's really important for people to understand that everybody has those big life problems. They have a lot of things going on in their life that creates just a stacked responsibility. And so trying to to get accomplished doesn't always mean that you reach the end goal that you think you were supposed to reach. But again, in developing yourself and knowing and seeing that you needed that other side of education to support your growth, you were able to get what you needed and then reapply it into your company and have a successful business. So I'm super proud of you and excited to have you today. So today we're going to be talking about schedules. And so as we said, you're a general contractor. So I'm sure that a lot of the viewpoint is going to be coming from the eyes of a general contractor. And so every once in a while, I might put some pushback in there for you so I can stand up for the owner since I'm an owner's rep, or so I can maybe stand up for the subcontractors if you start pounding on them too hard here too. So, but it's really important for us to be vulnerable. I mean, this is really just you and I having a discussion, sitting at the end of the bar, you know, bitching about a bad day. And now we just want to be able to figure out what it's going to take in order for us to resolve it. So why don't you present the challenge that you've had with schedules?
Well, like you said, we talked about a lot of different, when you first presented this, we talked about what we could talk about, and my gripes or complaints, and like I said, there was a lot that came to mind. But schedules seem to be something that's a little bit more, schedules is always going to be something, whether you're a subcontractor, general contractor, or whoever you are. It seems the biggest one, and it's always been one of my gripes and complaints, is because I've seen both, and I've seen both ways. I used to work for a company who was a general, then they turned into a subcontractor. So I've seen the subcontractor point of it, and I've seen the general point of it. So for me, the biggest gripe is sending out schedules, and people don't follow them. Me as one, I'm huge on schedule. I mean, all projects have a schedule, whether the general contractor puts one on or the owners put one on. Everything's based on schedule. If you're doing a public works job, they require certain timelines. If not, you might get hit with liquidated damages, and everyone plays a pivotal role in that. If I get one subcontractor who all of a sudden doesn't follow the schedule, guess what? General contractor gets hit with liquidated damages at the end of the project if they don't meet the schedule. So there's the biggest gripe and complaint that I had was one of the biggest gripes and complaint is people not following schedule, or at least communicating. Communication is huge.
So let's set this up then. So because I hear you're talking from a general contractor and even a subcontractor point of view. And from an owner's point of view, often I feel as though I'm just getting a schedule that somebody threw together to meet a requirement that they have to submit a master schedule within the first 10 days of a project. And whether or not your intention is ever to follow that schedule becomes really clear about the third day. So
Right.
and this is what I'm talking about. So I think this is also what you're talking about.
100%.
And so how does that process work? So you have developed a master schedule and then asked for input from your subcontractors, or do you ask for input from your subcontractors and then you develop a schedule?
So it's a great question. So for me, again, working with my previous years of experience working, with other generals or other subs, you always hear, as me as a general, I think I've heard all of it with a lot of subs saying the general always screws us over. The general. Well, I can't speak for all generals. I've heard a lot of horror stories of other companies, but most of the time, I'm gonna say 90% of the time, I hear nothing but bad things. And so I've thought, well, if I'm going to be a general, I want to be a little bit different. So a lot of times for me, my process that I've learned just from hearing the bad stuff about it is, of course, owners will give me a schedule and they'll say, hey, you got to meet a deadline by this date. So typically what I'll do is I'll work backwards. I'll create a master schedule. I try to put everyone in that schedule. It doesn't always work out. It's hard to get into every intricacy of everyone's trade, but try to get everybody. I normally do critical path. That's one of the the things I learned when I actually took your class, critical path. So I typically put that in there, and then I will send it out to all my subs and they'll say, hey guys, here's my full schedule. What do you think? Do you like it? Do you not like it? Do you need more time? Do you not have enough time? I try to stack certain things on top of each other. For myself, there's little tricks and trades that that you could probably stack people on top of each other, or you don't stack them, but you could, and that's where I can save some time. And so I send it off to everyone, and I could have anywhere from 20, 30, 40 subs on a project. And if I send it, sometimes I don't hear nothing back. I give everyone a response saying, hey, here's your opportunity. And some people
Well, I mean, that must make you feel good that you create such perfect schedules.
Well, no, exactly. Yeah, exactly. I know I know that it's not perfect. It's just me guessing using what experience that I have in the years that I have to say, this is what I think you're going to use. But you're right. There is no perfect schedule. So I would like to think that I at least get some input. Probably about 50% of the subcontractors will respond back saying, you know what, I like it. Hey, I need more time. Hey, most people don't like the takeaway time because they always want to give themselves some buffer. So I understand that. So I will send it off. After I send out a master schedule, then what I typically do is that master schedule will remain. I tell everyone, keep this master schedule. Every Friday, which is today, I send out a 3-week look ahead. And so that whole schedule never comes out anymore. Now every Friday you'll get a 3 week. So all my subs know 3 weeks in advance that when they're supposed to be there. People always complain, oh, we need time to buy material. Well, you had 3 weeks. And if you look at the master schedule, you'll see more or less when you're going to be there. And I don't change the master schedule unless the 3-week look ahead or 3-week schedule starts to change more than 2 weeks. Once it starts to change more than 2 weeks, then I say, you know what, guys, we're either moving too fast, we're behind schedule. Here's the new master schedule. Please plan accordingly. But then after that, I go back with that 3-week schedule. And so that's where the gripe then comes in.
So before we jump into that, let's just backstep a little bit. So what you were trying to do is get buy-in from your subcontractors that the time frames and the durations that you identified during different times of the project are going to be adequate for them, and you wanted their input. And so some are really busy, don't respond. Some are really busy and give you a half response, or some are just like, yeah, good for me. I'll bitch about it when I get to it. Okay. And so now, in order to be able to resolve that problem that you've seen happen over and over and over again in your projects, you've created a 3-week look ahead schedule that gives them 3 weeks notice, which typically also is there's a tie in the contract that requires you to give them some heads up. But it gives them 3 weeks notice to be able to purchase appropriate materials and get their manpower in order to be able to support your project. And so now we're at about 2 weeks behind schedule, and you're looking at having to revise the master schedule. So what happens at this point? Do we start looking for acceleration from our subcontractors? Do we start moving around different subcontractors and tasks? What is it that we start looking at doing?
Well, there's multiple things. It depends on certain things. I try not to accelerate as far as working weekends, Saturdays. I have done it where I feel like if I feel like the subcontractor is not performing to what I'm expecting, then that's what I will do. I've had subcontractors that say, oh, they're supposed to be there. They don't show up. Material don't show up. There's always an excuse. Oh, I can't this, I can't that. Once I start hearing excuses, now I'm going to force you to work a Saturday or work overtime. Now I'm going to now make it harder on you. I try not to do that because at the end of the day, we have to work together as a team. And communication is huge. If I have certain contractors or subcontractors that will communicate very well with me, those people, those companies, I will do whatever I can to move the schedule around, because like I told you, when I set the first schedule, I work backwards. If I have a total schedule and I can spread it out, I'll use every bit of that time. But as the work starts going, I'll start stacking. If I know, like for instance, framing walls, if I got a big, a big frame, a big area where I'm framing, I'll probably have the electrician come in halfway through the framing and start. He can start on the other half while the framers work on the other half. Um, you don't have to wait till the framing is done in order to have another trade come in. So I'll start squeezing people in as long as everyone can play nice. That's how I'll either keep on schedule and just start stacking people a little bit more. So I'll play that game a little bit. Or I can move, and like I said, I'll sit there and look at it. But if you just got a company who's just not responsive, not doing what they're going to do, there's always an excuse. Then you know what? I'm not going to do that. I'm going to be the person to say, you know what, you're going to be here on Saturday. If this costs you more money, then that's your problem, not mine.
Well, and I think it's important for people to understand. I mean, you're just not trying to be an ass about it. I mean,
No.
literally, it makes your job harder, right? Because now not only are you not getting communication from them, but you're having to go back and talk to other people and who have probably maybe worked around something in their own construction company in order to be able to help you out because of the non-communication from another subcontractor.
Correct. And you know what? Mostly what I found, and this is what I think, I don't know this for sure. My assumption is when people don't have no work, when they don't have work, they have the manpower to show up on site. They're looking at every schedule. They're trying to work. But when people got too much work, they're spread thin, which I get it. I've been there too. But I found that if you at least communicate and you talk to the GC or the owner and say, you know what, I can't be here because XYZ. My material's not here. I ordered it XYZ. As long as you stay ahead of it, most owners and or GCs understand.
Well, let's define your understanding a little bit, because let's say that you tell me I need to be on the job site and I am busy on other jobs, and so I just send one guy over there to work on your project, but I know it's not enough to get the job done.
So I actually have that going on right now. I have that going on right now, actually. So yeah, I have a schedule and I've got one guy. So I look at it, and so for me, if I gave you, let's just put 5 days to complete a task, and they send one guy. Okay, let's see how that one guy moves. But I know it needs at least a couple more guys. I'll let it play out. First day, second day, if all of a sudden I don't see the movement, then I'll reach out and say, hey, where are you at? And so I will then send an email saying you don't have enough manpower to meet the schedule. Then at that point, they'll tell me, no, we're going to make it. Okay, well, as long as you hit my schedule, I don't care if you load up with 100 million guys the last day, meet my schedule. So it's like, I don't care what you do and how you do it, as long as you hit those dates.
So, Silviano, how does that work as far as you telling them? So we're talking about communication right now and how important communication is. And from an owner's rep standpoint, I'm a paper pusher. I mean, I know I'm going to document everything. I'm going to document those conversations. I'm going to follow up with an email or a letter or something. But, that can get pretty overwhelming to have to do all the time, and you feel like you're just nagging at someone, and so is it in a daily report that you're documenting this? Is it through a text? And how are you documenting this back and forth that's going on?
So I'm a little bit I do everything email. You're 100% correct. Everything has to be documented. So number one, the superintendent on site, he's writing his dailies for the whole company. Who's been on site, who hasn't been on site, noting how many people are there. And so, and his daily, they'll say, hey, nobody was here these days. I'll get a phone call from him saying, hey, we don't have nobody here, or we've got one guy here. They'll let me know, and because not every time do I have time to go through every day and go. Sometimes I get busy, and I might be a week behind daily. So I do expect my superintendents to reach out. I will first reach out to that sub or that person or whoever, that foreman, whoever's in charge. And then I'll say, hey, where are you at? What are you doing? I like a phone call. I like talking to somebody. I feel like emails get, I've sent a lot of FU emails, not on purpose. Some of them maybe so, but maybe
They never
50.
actually say the FU,
No,
but
but
definitely
it's
with
pretty,
the
it's pretty implied.
directness of
Yeah, it's pretty implied, yeah. But there's
maybe
times
the
where
word incompetent was put in there.
but at the same time, I've also had emails that I've written out that I was being genuine or sincere, and it just, no matter how I wrote it, it didn't come out correct. But nonetheless, that's why I typically like to have a phone call first and say, hey, because you can hear a person's voice, you can hear, that in someone's voice. So I will do that first. If they don't answer, then I'll respond the email and say, hey, I just left you a message. Here's the situation. If I if I do get a hold of you, I immediately respond back with an email saying, hey, thanks for taking my call per our conversation. And here we are. And so nonetheless, there's always a phone call. There's for me, there's always a phone call. There's always an email follow-up. I have a lot of people. Matter of fact, one of my project manager, he's not a phone call person. He loves emails. He'll email the hell out of you. And and then he's like, no one's responded. I'm like, have you tried calling? So everyone's different, especially nowadays. We're in an age where people like to just email or text. And so that's, I guess you gotta figure out what everybody likes. But yeah, that's my procedure, is a phone call and a email.
Okay, so we've identified the problem of schedules and not really getting feedback on the schedule in order to be able to create an accurate schedule that people can commit to. Then we've identified, as that schedule is rolling through, people aren't able to meet the actual commitments within the schedule. So communication is really important, and then being able to document that communication. But what else? Because you identified the 3-week look ahead as something that you've used to try to keep people on track through the progression of the project. But what else is it that we can do, maybe innovatively, that can keep our subcontractors on track? So if materials or supplies seem to be a big one, is that something that you have a C van that has a few extra materials or whatever on hand, or what kind of things could happen in order for you to be able to support subcontractors in helping you meet the schedule that they've accepted?
Great question. I don't know. I haven't figured that one out yet. This is something that I'm still trying to work out. Not every job has the room for, like you said, either a Connex, some type of container ship to hold a material. A lot of people, a lot of contracts say the minute that material shows up on site, that the general now owns it. And so if it gets stolen, now it's on the general. So I know for me on that aspect, I've had people say, I want to drop off material. I'm like, not until you install it, because I don't want to be responsible if it gets stolen or whatnot. It's a lot of money to have to repay for it. So again, every job is different. There's no cookie cutter saying, hey, every job is the same. Whether you're managing a project, running a project, or building the project. I've built a lot of things. Like I said, I'm a carpenter by trade, and built a lot of things, and every job is a little bit different. And so haven't figured out.
It's important to rely on your contract, right?
It is, and communication really is what boils down to. And I guess that's where the again, going back to the gripe and complaint, because I do send the 3-week look ahead. So one of the big things every Friday, and what I find ends up happening is a lot of contractors, they see that 3-week look ahead and they think, oh, it's just another 3-week. It's just another 3-week. It's the same schedule as last week. It's the same schedule as last week. So now all of a sudden we're getting closer to the week when I need them there. And I'm like, hey, you're supposed to be here tomorrow. You're supposed to be here today. Oh, I was? Oh, I looked at the schedule, and I go, when? What schedule did you look at? And he's like, oh, I looked at it, a month ago. And I was like, did you not look at the other ones? Oh, no, I just assumed they were the same one.
So do you have in-person coordination meetings with subcontractors like a week prior to their start? When you send that 3-week look ahead out, you can say, look, you guys are expected to come meet for a prep, construction prep.
I try to. In theory, it sounds great on paper, but I try to, but not always does it work out. Sometimes I just get caught up and business happens. You've got a bunch of jobs running out. I mean, I've had meetings with people that I for sure said, oh, I thought we had this conversation. Well, in my head, I had the conversation with them, but I never did. In my head, I've written out an email, like I wrote you an email, never wrote it out, or it was still in my draft box, never hit send. So,
you know what, this is good though, because this is a perfect picture of what's going on with them too.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
100%.
And the only thing that I'll say is that I do have a little bit of a soft heart for subcontractors, only in the sense that the general contractor gets to steer the boat, and it always feels like the subcontractors have to abide by whatever the general contractor or where they're steering. And yet they have to steer their own boat of their own company with all of the other backlog jobs that they have. So in knowing and understanding that dynamic, what is it that you see is the biggest problem that subcontractors are having? Is it being able to manage their own in-house work to meet the schedule requirements of other projects? Is it the lack of manpower? Is it the lack of skilled manpower? Is it the communication? What are the two biggest problems that you see?
All of it. Everything you just said. Every company is different. I mean, there is no perfect company, including myself. We all can get better. We all can do better and learn. And I think we all try to. And it sounds like, hey, we need to do better. And just sometimes life or work or whatever gets ahead of ourselves. But I think everything that you just touched on is an excuse, or not excuse, a reason. I think for me, the biggest one goes to communication. I can't speak for you. You made a comment earlier about something, but in the perfect world, communication, I say that and someone else doesn't care. For me, I can only speak for myself. Communication goes a long ways. If you're at least honest with me and tell me, hey, I got a problem with manpower. I don't have the right guy. My material. Well, when did you order your material? I ordered it months ago and it's still not here. Okay, I can understand that. Let's see where we can massage the schedule to get you in somewhere. But if I gave you that schedule months ago and you didn't buy it and you just ordered it last week, your emergency now. That's not a problem. That's your fault. And so it is hard to really understand. But as long as there's communication, at least for me and Travell, I say it goes a long ways.
Well, and one of the things that I want to explain that you're going through is you just really need to become more empathetic, Silviano.
Correct. And you know, I do try
here's
to.
why. But this is what I want to say to the audience, is that when you have these pressures of these schedules and these budgets, there's not time to have empathy for the problems of someone else, although you can appreciate and understand their problems because you've experienced them yourself. And I think that part of the reason why we are not as empathetic is because we did what we needed to do to push through and get through that situation. And we have the expectation that this other person is going to do and needs to do the same thing. But what I would say is that you don't have to become a big mush pot on me, right now. But I would say to have just a little more appreciation of the learning experience that person is going through, because they may not have the same level of experience of feeling that pain that you've had to feel over the years. And so in your reprimand, I'm just encouraging a little bit of education to them in that moment that helps get them to where they're a better subcontractor for you in the future.
100%. I will agree with that. Yes.
Well, awesome. Well, I think that you've done an absolutely fantastic job here, and this is going to be a great learning lesson for others who want to learn about how to really take care of some of those problem schedules that they are dealing with. A lot of it comes down to communication and being able to document that communication. And also, one thing that I heard that I'll let you speak to a little bit more here is forecasting, really being able to kind of look in that crystal ball and see ahead of what's going to be coming. I know that you said that you look 3 weeks ahead. And I know that I've been on some jobs where that was the same thing that other superintendents were trying to do. And then come towards the middle of the project, they get busy and they start falling off of that. And after you've done that, you've trained subcontractors how to rely and depend on that. And then when you stop doing it, then those subcontractors get lost because they don't have that guidance anymore. But before I have you talk about that, I just want to remind everybody that's here today, thank you so much for being here. And if you have any questions, please put them in the comments, and then I'll be able to send Silviano any of those questions. So please do that. But yeah, talk to us a little bit about forecasting and trying to predict, so that you can predict contingency into your schedule and really be able to protect yourself from some of these delays.
Yeah, like I said, I think you hit everything. Communication, pretty much going back to what you said, it pretty much is everything. We're all here trying to do a job together. The subcontractor has to make money. If subcontractors are not making money, then you go out of business. And so everything sort of ties. So at the end of the day, for me, I'm trying to make a happy customer. What that means, a happy schedule, happy, everyone being happy, but everyone's got to do their part. And yeah, it's not always going to be perfect, but to answer your question on what did you say? What was your question again? Your question was
just forecasting, like
forecasting.
really understanding what's coming up.
Again, at the very beginning of the project, I have to forecast the whole project. That's you got to sit down and just really, I'm a planner in my head, just been doing it for so long, and then I'll start writing it down. I've seen people do pool plans. That seems I've heard a lot of companies that do it. I've never physically done one. I've seen them, and it looks like it works pretty well. It gets down into the weeds, but it takes a full cooperation of all the subs and everyone to do it. So if it's a big enough project that's requiring that, that's another way of doing it. But forecasting is hard. And then, like you said, I have to keep on that. If you stop forecasting every week, then the project's going to just go. It's almost like turning on a machine. I always say, being on prior military, I remember being in the barracks and having to buff the floors. You can turn that machine on, plug it in, turn it on, and it'll just buff. It'll just go. And you never know what you're going to get at the end of the day. So someone has to man the machine, and unfortunately, that has to be the general contractor. So it's not for me. It's not an option. It's not an option not to man that machine. If you let that machine go, and then you can only be mad at yourself for it not doing the correct job. So as a sub, I can see if there is no one manning that machine, they're just going to do whatever they need to do. But there has to be some type of constant forecasting. So like today, I will forecast the next 3 weeks. So I already, again, if you have the experience, you're able to at least see what's going on and make those changes. If you don't have that experience, and you're going to then have to rely on your superintendents and or your foreman, and you're going to have to call them and say, hey, per our schedule, this is where we're at. If you're good, you're looking at those. If you're a project manager and you're looking at those dailies, you're following along where they're at in comparison to the schedule. Part of a project manager's responsibility is verifying that we're still on schedule, verifying that you're on track with money and so forth. But on schedules, they're verifying that. On that Friday, they're calling the superintendent. Hey, what do you think? Have you spoken with this sub? Are they going to be done? Are they going to hit our deadline? Are they going to pass our deadline? Are they going to be done early? Can we sneak someone else in there? You know, I'm always trying to sneak in other people. Like, can we get someone else in here? I like to stay ahead of schedule, even though when I send out that schedule, it doesn't show that. I always try to get people because, like you said, when it does go bad, I don't like to scramble. I'm always trying to be ahead of it before it gets to me. If in the future I know in a month I'm gonna not have the manpower, I've been known for my guys to, you know what, I've got a lot of work coming up. Let's start working Saturdays, and I have to take that hit. If I know if I but you have to be diligent enough to constantly be looking ahead. And like I said, not everyone can do it because either they don't have the experience or you got to go rely on somebody else.
Well, I love that. Thank you so much. And so some of the things that I'm hearing is that, you know, subcontractors tend to be have the appearance of being a little less sophisticated in some of their administration aspects and more focused on the discipline and production side. And so being able to potentially hire a fractional person that can help manage some of that work and be able to coordinate, communicate with the general contractor. I also appreciate you wanting to build the entire master schedule, but I think that inviting some of these key subcontractors in for a short meeting that allows you to do a pull schedule or just has more of their buy-in in the beginning when you're creating that schedule, that and maybe even taking some of the pressure off of yourself for that. And then I think you guys need to have me come in with a construction AI course so that I can help you see the benefits of being able to have that forecasting done each week so that you're not spending hours on it and you can, you know, plug the information in and spit something out in 20 minutes that allows you to be able to review it and add to it instead of just having to do it by scratch or by hand. But with that, Silviano, thank you so much. And just one more time, can you please let people know where they can reach out to you and find you on LinkedIn and your company's website?
Yeah, so you can, like, if you don't already have me on LinkedIn, or you can look me up, Silviano Velasquez, or Travel Construction on LinkedIn. And if you look up my website, it is www.travelinc.com. That's TRIVELINC.com.
Fantastic. And just as I expected, there's a last minute question that came flying in through the lines. So I want to throw this out there to you. I'm assuming it's not a different program than what you use for your master schedule, but the question is, what program or software do you use for your 3-week look ahead? And is there an option to include direct notifications to subcontractors with pending work in that schedule?
So right now I currently use Project. That's actually, I learned Project actually from you. When I was taking your class, I didn't know how to use Project, and ever since I've learned that, I've liked it. It's worked for me, and the previous company I was working for, they were using it at the time, so it actually benefited me. I'm sure I don't use it how it's supposed to be. Like anything else, the program does a lot more than what I know how to do, like Excel. But that's what I like. I continue with it. I've heard of all different other programs of schedules. I'm just a creature of habit. I like to use, once I get on something, I struggled with trying to use it. My project manager that I have, he actually is all into trying other things. So I always tell him, if you want to try something, you try it. And if you like it, then you can teach me how to do it. I don't have time to learn. So I'm not opposed to trying new things. You know, we are in a technology-based world, and I try to use technology to the most that I possibly can. And I think all companies should. There's a lot of big companies out there that do it, and so whether they're generals or even subs, I've met a lot of subs that do a great job at it. And so trying to just keep up with the other companies on what they're using. If there's a software out there that I can do, you know, that it's better than Project right now, I can do that. That'd be awesome.
And Silviano, I hear a little bit of deprecation in your voice of, only knowing Microsoft Project. But I will let you know that this is a common thing with many construction companies, because these softwares are so expensive that once you get tied into one and all of your other softwares get integrated into each other, it's really hard to change. So, and Microsoft Project, the reason why I teach it in the courses is because it is simple. It's a foundational software that allows you to understand the components of construction software. So if you do move on to other software programs, it's relatively easy to make the transition. So you're in the right one.
Well, like I said, I'm not opposed to it. Like I said, I am trying to grow as a company, and that means, growing with technology, growing with the world. I'm always up to something, trying something new. But like I said, I personally am a creature of old habits, or so I'll let one of my other guys do it, and then if they say they like it, then I'm like, okay, now show me how to do it.
Yeah, give me the cliff notes.
That's right. That's right. I don't. Yeah, exactly.
All right. Well, thank you so much again for being here with us today. I just want to remind everyone that we are going to be having another case study next Friday, and that if there is any more construction knowledge that you're looking for, you can always go to my website at Construction Management Online, where you can learn next steps to be able to continue your growth in the construction industry.